Welcome to Theological Grazing.
So let me preface this by simply saying that I am not, I don't think, a music snob. So everything that follows, maybe it will sound snobbish to some. I don't think so, but if it does, just know I don't think that would describe me. I'm fairly eclectic in the kind of music that I listen to. Last night I was literally rocking out and dancing around with my kids to Paul Simon and Linkin Park and the Ramones. So I'm not saying the things I'm about to say out of some kind of, musical snobbery. But I've been thinking a lot lately about the nature of church music in the church. And I think fundamentally, the whole idea of the so-called worship wars gets it so wrong. And now the worship wars, right? This is kind of an older fight, I guess. I don't think it is as big of a deal today, although it still really matters. And my guess is that anybody that tries to change music in their church will see that it matters. But the idea that, there's those who want traditional music, like hymns and things like that, and those who want more contemporary music. And honestly, when I've been a part of those places where the so-called worship wars are going on, what you actually find, the people that want the hymns, they're not really wanting, for the most part, traditional hymnody, older classical styles, as much as they want, the stuff written in the 20th century instead of just the stuff written in the 2000s. That's kind of the span, at least within a lot of evangelical churches. And as I've been thinking about it lately, I've been trying to figure out that. Well, let me just lay it out like this. The church where I pastor is a church where the majority of what we sing are traditional hymns or psalms. And we do sing some, more contemporary songs. We sing, different songs that are more popular and known today, but not that many, right? Most of what we sing, even though they'd be well-known songs, they are not what you might consider any kind of like contemporary tunes. I mean, we sing songs that go all the way back to the early centuries of the church, right through the Reformation, and then some that are more modern. And so it's more like that, but we do it, almost all of it, even the newer stuff, we do in more of a classical style. We use hymnals, and the music itself, the accompaniment, is a more classical style. Now, let me tell my personal experience, and then I will explain something that has, kind of made me to start thinking about this issue a little bit more. My personal experience is that when my wife and I first came to the church, where I'm now a pastor, we came just as, regular folks. We just walked in the doors one day, loved it, never left, and hope never to leave. But we would have said, when we were first visiting the church, that the one thing that we would like in our ideal world, where if the church were just a little bit more like what we would want, it wasn't enough to make us change our mind about the church, wasn't enough to do anything besides just, it's a little bit of a preference thing. The one thing that would fit that category would be that we would want a bit more eclectic music and maybe a more modern style of music. Now, within a year of being at the church, I don't think either of us would have said that. I think we would have changed. And by now, I love the way that we worship and the music side of what we do. But we've had many people that I've talked to over the last few years that will come into our church, experience the music, and one of the things they'll say is, well, basically, here's all these things I like about the church, but I wish the music was whatever. There would be some kind of change. Now, I don't know if that's like the thing that keeps some people away from the church. And if I'm totally honest, if somebody doesn't go to a church simply because of the music, I don't really, it's not a big deal to me. I'll put it the nicest way I can. That's fine to me. I'm not of the opinion that we should change the way the church is to fit as many people as possible or something like that. I want people to feel welcome and in a sense at home, but I don't want the church to be driven by the whims and fancies of people, because there's a lot of people that would come in and say, this is the only way you should do music in the church. When the actual answer is, no, there's many ways that you could do this. It could be different. It's not as though this is a hard and fast style that can never change. So this is the experience of many people. It was my experience. But what I found over time is that I've grown to like it. And not only that, I think, honestly, in part, just alongside of my study of Western thought, right? Reading more philosophy and history, reading more broadly within the liberal arts, I've come to love classical music to the point where a more classical style is probably 80% plus of what I listen to on a regular basis. I still love other music. I love folk music, for instance. I love that style. And I actually think the folk type style is, in some ways, really fitting for a church, for congregational worship, congregational singing. But here's what I'm trying to get at with all of this background. What I'm really trying to think about is how I'm not certain that most people who say something like, for instance, I don't love like old hymns. I prefer contemporary music. I'm not certain that people that think that way, as I did at one point, I'm not sure that that's actually because of a taste or like a distaste rather of the music itself and the way things are sung and done, as much as it is an alienation from classical music. Because classical music is a much more kind of mature form of music. It's something that is not as simple. It's not like readily available to everybody. I think in certain ways it might be, right? There's certain ways that you could hear a classical piece, and if anybody says it's not good, like you are just like, it's obviously wrong, right? Most people would hear certain kinds of classical music and just think, wow, how majestic, right? How beautiful, how glorious even. But I do think it's possible that what's actually happened in a lot of ways is that people have been alienated from a more mature form of music. And one of the things that I think might help that sort of thing is simply teaching people, once again, how to sing different parts. And I say this as somebody that doesn't really know how to do that. I've talked to musicians at our church about this and about my desire for this and how, hey, maybe we should try to do this at some point. But I think that if we were able to be taught, simply have like times when we learn together how to sing particular pieces, and if we were able to engage more in this kind of a style, I think that would help a lot of people. And so really, again, I think that part of the problem with the whole worship wars thing is it became like a thing about, well, this is all about personal taste. And there's some truth to that. There's a personal taste element. Maybe. I'm not even fully convinced that's true. But I think more so, people are so alienated from even just singing together in general. They're alienated from the singing community as a kind of group art for the glory of God. And so if there are ways that we can help bridge that gap, and maybe that means, hey, you're not going to do a super classical style, but maybe you slowly work that in or something. I don't know. I don't know the best way to do this. But it seems to me that most people are not as much opposed to traditional classical music in worship as much as they are alienated from it. That they literally just don't know how it could work in a way that they can engage in it. It's like a different language, right? This kind of music is just a different language for so many people, and it takes time to learn. But if there's ways that we could incorporate people in a way they could understand, and in a way that they, instantly enjoy and appreciate, we might be able to slowly build that together.
Well, that's all, folks. If you could help me out, rate and review this podcast, share it with a friend, go ahead and email me if you have any questions. We're out.